All right, guys, welcome to another video. This is Jordan. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, in this video, we are going to cover what I call the transition chord. What is a transition chord? Well, this is basically the chord that I use to get myself through transitions. It's a chord I use as a passing chord. It is a chord I use whether I am playing something and I need to get out of that key into a new key, or maybe I'm using that to go back to the top of the songs. I'm using it as a cadence. So let me show you what I mean by this. The transition chord. What does this look like? This is basically the 4 chord over the 5 chord in the bass. Well, technically, it's just really the 5, right? Because you're gonna see I'm only gonna play the bass, the 5 of the key that I'm in the bass, and then so it's gonna be the 4 major over the 5. And let's just say the 5 instead of major, so I'm gonna break this down for you in a second. And then at times I will add the 13th of my 5 chord for color. Okay? I know this might seem a little like, what is he trying to say? I'm confused. Don't worry, we're gonna get to it right now. Here we go. Okay. So let's say that I'm in the key of C. Right? Let's say I'm in the key of C. We know that this is the C major scale. And for you guys that maybe this is a new concept to you, if you have not watched my video on chord degrees, scale degrees, please go back and watch that video so you understand what I mean by when I say the 4 chord, the 5 chord, because I'm assigning numbers. This might be a little foreign if you've kind of skipped ahead, right? So we've learned that according to the scale and chord degrees, that we can assign numbers to the keys. So for example, we understand that we can assign the 1, right, would be major chord. The 2 of that key would be a minor, right? The 3 would be minor. The 4 would be major. The 5 would be major. The 6 would be minor. And the 7 would be diminished. And we're back to the 1, or some people would refer it as the 8, right? So this is the key. So when I say, we're in the key of C, so when I say my transition chord, I am playing the 4 chord over the 5 in the bass. What does that mean? It means that I'm going to take my 5th degree as a 5, which is G, and I'm putting in the bass. So I can play it here, I can play it as an octave, right? And I'm going to play my 4 chord over the 5. So you see my 5, and I'm going to take my 4 chord, which is F major. This right here is my transition chord. This is the very basic before we add any color. This is my transition chord. You guys see that? Now, and I'm going to show you in a real life situation how I'll use this. But let's spell this out so you can understand what I'm doing. Right? Now, if we go back to my slide, you see I added that. I will add the 13th of my 5 chord for color. So what do I mean by that? It means that my 5 chord, which is which was a G, right? So if we were playing a 5 chord, it would be what, a major, right? So we know that the 13th of my 5 chord is what? So we have to know this, the G major scale, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? We're back to the top, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What is a 13? It's an E, which is the same thing as a 6, right? So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same thing. But we say the 13th because the reason why I say it's 13 is because we look at it as what we call an extension, right? So we have our 5 chord, and we have our 5 in the bass, and we have the 4 chord here. So we're gonna add that 6 or that 13, what we just got to, right, from the G. So it gives us this. So we basically have an F major 7 chord over the G. Is everybody getting that? And we could also spell this as well to make it sound a little more understand. We could say the 4 major 7th chord over 5. So we could also say the 4 major 7th chord over 5. So as you can see, this is just what we played, right? This is just what we played. So I have the G as a 5. I got my 4 chord, and I added the 13th. And I can use this as a transition. And I can even do more things. I can take this G and I can add the 5th to that and give it some more color. You hear that? That's very nice, right? So I love to play this chord when it comes to transitions. So let's create a melody, for example, right? We're gonna repeat the cycle to the 1, to 6. We're gonna do this. So you see how I use that 5 chord and I can use it to end. Right, so this chord can be used as that passing to get back to the top. It could also be used as a passing to get to a new key. So for example, if we know we're in the key of C, right? And let's say we want to modulate and we want to take a song up a half step, right? We know we have the 5, right, in the bass. We have the 4 chord over the 5. But what happens if I want to take up a half step? What would that be? Now we're going to be going to D flat, right? So we know that's the same thing in D flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know we got the 5 in the bass. We know we have the 4 chord, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, which is what? G flat, or somebody would say F sharp major, right? And what can we do? We can add that. We can add that 13. So we have this. Just like if we went chromatically down a half step, same thing, right? So what happens if I'm playing a song like I'm gonna go up a half step. Here we go. So see how I use that? I basically came off that 5, 4 of a 5, up a half step. And sometimes you go straight into it. You could do it. So we would be playing the same song, we just be playing in a new key. And this is how, if you ever hear singers, like, I'm just gonna make something else, so forgive my singing voice. You're the breath of my life. You're the breath of my life. Oh, ooh, da, 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 you're the breath of my life. Watch it, take it up. You're the breath of my life. Oh, ooh, da, 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 da. You're the breath of my life. You're the breath. So you see how we were totally able to use that transition chord to go do keys. And we can even do it as a whole steps, right? We're in C, we can do it to go to G. So we can be like, right? You're the breath of my life. You're the breath of my life. Right, so we could do that to go to other keys. I mean, anything beyond a whole step, I would be just careful. You would have to really make sure you have a good arrangement and good lead-in tones so far as the notes to get in there, because it can be difficult for a singer to follow that. Or you just have to make sure that you have a really nice smooth way. Because for example, if I was to go from, let's say, C to let's say we wanted to go from C to F sharp, right? This is what, let's see how it sounds. Actually, it wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. Actually, might work. So this chord you can really use as a transition chord, right? To really be a nice passive chord. It's a very basic, fundamental chord that is used in a lot of music to really kind of solidify the ending of that phrase or that musical cadence or phrase before you get back to the top, or before you get to a new, key, right, or a new arrangement. So again, we're gonna go over this again. So our transition chord is our 4 chord over the 5 in the bass. Is our it is a, or another way to look at it is, it is a 4 major 7th over 5, and it becomes a 4 major 7th. The 7 is added once I add the 13th of my 5 chord, right? Because that 13th, remember if we're in G, that 13th of my 5 chord makes this F chord into a major 7th. Everybody getting that? Awesome. So what I want you guys to do as practice and for your homework, I want you to go ahead and I want you to practice transition chords in all 12 keys. So meaning, if we're in the key of C, I want you to start in the key of C with your F major over G. And you don't even have to add the 7th right now. Just practice basic. Just practice your 4 over your 5 in the bass. I want you to go and practice chromatically. Practice chromatically. So you got back, right? Right there. You can practice it coming down. Right, and then once you kind of got that, you can go ahead and you can practice with your 13th. So you go. Some of you might know what I just played. Never too much Luther Vandross. That's what he was doing. These were the transition chord. Look, G over A. It's my, if I'm in the key of D, my 5 would be A, G, then it goes back down to D flat. Remember we played that earlier? So it's really going chromatically. It's going down. Key of D, key of E flat, key of A. Right, so that is an example of how you can use a transition chord. So that this transition chord is gonna be very good for you, especially when you get that color and you're coming out of that phrase and you want to go back or you want to get to another key. You can add that just beautiful. It really creates grounding and it gives a clarity, to where you're going. So guys, I want to thank you for opting into this video. So go ahead and practice that in all 12 keys, up and down the scale until you can really get fluent. So if you're at a gig and somebody says, okay, we're going to the 5, or we're going past step, we're going to the whole step, you'll be able to just follow, with ease because you just are so fluently trained and you're so fluently rehearsed and practice with that. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning into this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, peace out.